a moderate to severe ARDS patient on VV ECMO, what should be the normal ventilatory strategies, like in this not strategy, ventilatory parameters that should be put up on the ventilator when we are having a full-blown VV ECMO in place? Some minimal flow and something.
So whenever we start ECMO, our target is to give rest to the lung. We try to reduce, we do not just come down drastically, because it is possible that whenever you place on VV ECMO, the flow is around 60% of the cardiac output, so there can be drastic drop in oxygen saturation. So what we do, we start with the ECMO, we look at how much flow we have set, and we have a targeted saturation. Initially we used to keep around 88%, 86-88%, but after COVID we have learned that even 84% saturation is more than enough, provided the lactate is not rising or metabolic acidosis is not coming. Then our target is to reduce the plateau pressure less than 25. This is what we follow a rule of 10 usually. Keep 10, you keep the respiratory rate of 10, and limit the plateau pressure less than 25, right? And then gradually you start reducing oxygen depending upon how much is the PO2 or how much is the saturation. If saturation is 88, 89, we keep reducing and gradually come down. Our target is bring down the lowest possible FiO2 around 0.3, means 30% oxygen, but not immediately in these cases. On VV ECMO we can do, but on VV ECMO sometimes there is a drastic drop of oxygen saturation. So we keep reducing and we look at this. We keep adjusting the flow, we look at the blood gases, and then we readjust our sweep gas flow settings depending upon the carbon dioxide. But one thing we need to remember, if CO2 is very high in the beginning of ECMO, do not just try to wash out. Otherwise it can lead to an intracranial hemorrhage and other changes, so it's better you keep reducing it gradually.
Fine. Only thing is that you just go more by plateau pressures, get the plateau pressures down. You can keep the PEEP high for first 2 days, because if the PEEP is already on 18 or 20 and then you get down on 10 immediately, then it will cause de-recruitment. So it's always come down to 14, and then over 48 hours of time you can come down to 10.
Any more questions, delegates?
Sir, whenever we are seeing in VA ECMO, cardiac output we are seeing based on VTI method. That cardiac output by echo, is it like native cardiac output or it is given by the ECMO machine? Like, is it like if I am getting VTI based cardiac output is 4 liters and ECMO is already giving some 4 liters, either it is 4 plus 4, 8 liters, or it is like
it's truly speaking in the opposite direction, because you are placing a femoral cannula. So your flow from heart is coming on one direction and the femoral flow is coming from the opposite direction. So this is why it is said when you are weaning your patient from ECMO, even 25% ejection fraction is fair enough, because when you reduce the ECMO flow, the ejection fraction will improve. In fact, there is an improvement in the there is a VTI improvement in the mitral annular velocity. Everything will start improving because there is an opposite flow. We should understand that, right? We are maintaining our cardiac output with the ECMO flow when the cardiac functions are hardly anything, means there's a severe cardiogenic shock. But gradually, once the cardiac functions start improving, then you will see that there is a change in VTI, change in ejection fractions. Suppose you started at the time ejection fraction was just 8 or 10%, which is a common thing. So now you see that your ejection fraction has come to 18 or 20%. So now you start thinking other parameters are settling down, your blood pressure is fine. So probably if you are keeping a flow of 4 liter at this stage, it will not allow heart to pump adequately. If other parameters are fine, you reduce the flow. When you reduce the flow, you will see that there is a few percent increase in the ejection fraction. So that's suggestive that, and there is an improvement in the VTI, improvement in your mitral annular velocity. So that means your heart is ejecting adequate blood. That will be initially guided by the pulse pressure. When you start VA ECMO, your pulse pressure is less than 10 or 12, hardly any pulse pressure, hardly any ejections. But once heart has started improving the pumping, there is an increase in the pulse pressure. You see that the blood pressure is now 85 by 58 or 60, so it means there is a more than 20 pulse pressure is there. So it means the heart functions are improving. So this is cardiac output. When we say when the heart is not pumping, it is the machine cardiac output which is there, right? But once the cardiac functions are improving, then it's and we are reducing the flow, then it is the cardiac output, actual native cardiac output which is working. Sir, you were asking about something awake ECMO. Something like, yes, sir.
Sir, to add to the last one,
I think.
have any specific indications for that?
Yeah. Gradually, when we are learning the ECMO over years, so now we are keeping awake ECMO. We are putting the patient on awake ECMO. Like if VECMO is there, and if a patient of suppose sulfose poisoning is with you, and patient is otherwise fine, so we do under local and we keep the patient awake. Or sometime initially the patient is in a severe shock and we feel that the hypoperfusion is there and his mentation is not appropriate. We intubate, we do ECMO, and once the patient is on ECMO improves, we extubate the patient on ECMO. Same thing for the VV ECMO. If there is no increased of work of breathing, like if you see frank ARDS, initial phases patient is tachypneic, so we have to sedate and paralyze. So most of the time we land up with a tracheostomy and then weaning from ECMO. Then we try to make the patient awake. Usually we have seen the failure that on ARDS patient we extubated and then we have to re-intubate these patients. So most of the time, what are your experience?
See, there are certain indications where you can think of do awake ECMO. One is, as Vivek said, VA ECMO, most of the VA ECMO you try to go for an awake ECMO unless patient is in pulmonary edema. Initial 24 hours we might ventilate, but after that we try to keep them awake. Second is chronic lung diseases which have an exacerbation, waiting for a bridge to transplant. Definitely they are the candidate for a awake ECMO. Third is an acute ARDS and awake ECMO. That is a little dicey. When the patient is in acute inflammatory phase, if the disease is in progressive state, we cannot think of doing an awake ECMO, because then the moment you try to make them awake, the work of breathing increases. But once they go to a stable phase, where we are waiting for the lungs to recover, that is probably the time where you can think of doing an awake ECMO. Get the tube out, let the patient to breathe, and give good physiotherapy. That might help.
Thank you, Delhi.
Sir, one more question, sir. Yesterday, I have not been exposed to this thing, sir. I have seen in one of our groups, sir, where there was a VV ECMO and IABP placed together and they decannulated within a week for a cardiogenic shock patient in Citizens Hospital, sir. I have not been exposed to these type of things, so I have read the literature, sir, which said that in a Japanese thing, using both has given a positive outcome and a good mortality benefit. VA ECMO and an IABP, both together. Yes, sir. So, what is the physiology behind using both, sir?
In this case, I think the concept is a little different. If you want to unload the heart, the IVP will not able to unload the heart to a great extent. If it is just a mild to moderate cardiogenic shock, probably it might still help IVP. So you can consider IVP in that case. And if the patient is pulmonary edema, probably they might have put the patient for VV ECMO for bad lung or pulmonary edema, and then IVP for a mild to moderate cardiogenic shock. But if patient is in a frank cardiogenic shock, sky score around categories around D or E, then definitely only IVP won't help. It is going to be we have to put an VA ECMO or other mechanical circulatory device to unload the heart, because unloading is important.
The reduction of the afterload is the concept of it.
Yeah, that was the only concept of reduction. After that, that's probably in an early phase where the patient is in a going into cardiogenic, so probably in ischemic heart, the moment you put the IVP, the coronary perfusion improves and that improves the cardiac contractility. In early stage, you can still think of just managing the IVP. But later stage, if the patient is in a category D or E, in that case, probably you need to think about unloading the heart.
Sir, and if we are placing like this, sir, where should be the cap?
Yeah, just something to add. There can be different situation. Like your patient was on IABP and was set. This we very frequently come across. That patient is on IABP. Now question is to remove IABP and put a ECMO are putting ECMO along with the IABP. So most of the time we choose to place ECMO with IABP with the concept that possibly once the cardiac function improves, we'll take off ECMO because it's a bigger machine and more dangerous as compared to the IABP. That's one. Second, it can be used as a offloading, like there is LV distension and other measures are failed, so you can place an IABP with the intent that you can prevent the LV distension of, you are doing an offloading, so you are preventing LV distension and LV thrombus.
So if you place a cannula with LVC, the flows will be hampered.
Huh? Sorry?
If you place a cannula.
Your IABP you are placing in aorta.
Aorta.
Ah.
But the balloon comes till the down.
So
The flow which we are giving it back, where should we place the cannula?
the IABP will be placed at its normal place. There is no change in the place of the IABP, wherever it is placed. The only thing you have to keep in mind that rather than keeping a 1:1 ratio of the IABP, probably here you have to choose 1:2 or 1:3. So that you are maintaining the adequate flow and you are supporting with the IABP, so that some amount of coronary perfusion you are also improving and some offloading you are doing.
And usually your arterial cannula is it doesn't cross the common iliacs. So it remains in the common iliacs. So that doesn't hamper at all. As Vivek said, yes, usually prefer to keep it 1:2 rather than 1:1 so that the flow can be maintained.
And if we are weaning this, wean the VA ECMO first and then the IABP.
Yes, that is what usually what we do prefer.